an evangelical, I was a big reader, but I only ever read nonfiction, like theology or how to be a better Christian. Or every megachurch pastor has a book that's a bunch of words that essentially is saying nothing. But among the tens of theology books that I read, Captivating by John and Stacey Eldridge is one of the worst books I've ever read. Trigger warning, sexual assault. Let's talk about why I read this in the first place. It's 2019, my situationship has randomly ended, and I decide, you know what? I don't want to be traumatized by more shitty men, so I'm just gonna take my ass straight to therapy before I can overthink this. Starting out, the therapist wants to know why I'm coming to therapy. I kind of give her some background, and she's like, issues with men. You're gonna read this book and then come back. And it's basically a husband and wife partnering together to write a book about super rigid gender norms, and there was also a brother book called Wild at Heart, which opens with a quote from Teddy Roosevelt, if that tells you anything. The entire book essentially is submit and you are meant to be a sex object for your husband. There's honestly no other way to say it. Everything in it basically diminished women to side characters in the stories of men. I swear every other quote was like, the woman in the presence of a real man can flourish and ignite her feminine heart, or like that actually could be a legit quote. Like, that was me bullshitting, but I bet if I read it again, which God, I never will, I bet a quote word for word like that would be in there. And at the time, I remember going back into therapy, post reading it, and like kind of trying to learn something from it, but at the same time being like, my role in life is more than just to submit. Like, yeah, I know that's what the whole evangelical thing is, and supposedly at the time I had bought into that, but I was very much bucking up against the norms of like women are less, because that's dumb. That's inherently dumb. Like, if your whole thing is that women are supposed to submit and you are natural leaders, but in order to be a leader you have to force women to submit, that is not natural. And when I came back into therapy, clearly not buying into the message of this book, the therapist was like, here's the thought, maybe you attract bad men because you wear too much makeup. And in my first session, I had disclosed to this therapist that I was a victim of SA and SH, and that's a great idea. Tell the past victim that it's their fault they attract those kinds of men because they wear too much makeup. The whole submit to men movement is bullshit. Like, if you can't lead, that's not a woman's fault. That's completely on you. If in order for a woman to become her natural self, she has to be forced into it, that's not natural. Books like this aren't only full of shit, they're harmful to people. They convince women to sit down, shut up, and waste their lives on men who couldn't earn anything based on their own merit. And I swear, every time I go to a Goodwill or a Salvation Army, one of them is there, and I don't know if I should be thinking, oh great, we're all throwing them out, or if I should be like, oh no, they're placing them in all of these cheap places so that way people will buy inexpensive books and read them, and then be indoctrinated into this bullshit mindset that suppresses women. All of that to say, even when I was bought into the evangelical mindset, at the time I was like, this is one of the worst books I've ever read.